Welcome to the Hardcore Finance Podcast with Alex Chizik and Shimon Lazarov. Today we're going to talk about the events that happened on Robinhood and other trading platforms as retail investors acting together clashed with traditional hedge funds. One party went long, the other one went short, and hilarity ensued. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. Hi everyone, welcome to the Hardcore Finance Podcast. So I've been watching these events that happened today, and one part of it surprised me because I never thought that Charles Schwab would automatically stop trading, trading on stocks that had nothing to do with circuit breakers or any normal mechanisms to stop trading stocks. But also, if you would have told me that Robinhood would liquidate people's positions without asking them and without any good reason, I could believe it. As people say, if you don't pay for the product, you are the product. And Alex and I will talk about all of these things, but eventually I think this is the best possible proof of why Bitcoin and decentralized systems, as opposed to centralized ones, are the future. How are you, Alex?
I'm good. Today, there's a lot to talk about today, and I think both of us feel pretty passionately about this. We should say Robinhood allegedly sold people's GME stocks, which is GameStop, but nonetheless, there's, you said hilarity ensued. I would say calamity ensued, and I'm very excited to do this episode with you today because this is one of the first times in my life, or at least in my being around crypto since mid 2016, that I really feel the mainstream, at least of the US, is going to understand why Bitcoin is so important. So, and I want to differentiate that because the mainstream of the world and developing countries already understand. We come to Bitcoin from a privileged perspective. We have a great economy, a great working financial system. Caveat, we'll talk about this today. And we don't have, hyperinflation versus like a farmer in Nigeria or, a business person, a business owner in Argentina does. They have to worry about wealth preservation. And as much as we discuss and moan and complain about wealth preservation in the US, it's nowhere near the rest of the world. So, the rest of the world, I gets it, right? It's really the US and Western economies that don't get it. And you talk, France coming out and saying, the UK, that needs to be regulated. But what happened today was what happened in the last couple of weeks with Robinhood, and we'll take the listeners through it. For those who don't know what happened, we'll explain what happened. But it's such a slap in the face to everything the system was meant and built to be, or at least the facade it had to be, to protect the consumer. You talked about when trading stops, like the auto breaks in trading, it's really to protect consumers and retail investors from getting screwed if there's a market crash, right? It's to calm the nerves. But what happened in this last week was, it's like the veil was unveiled and the Wizard of Oz is not the wizard. It's just a little man sitting there, pretending to put, to be this wizard or whatever, to be this being. What happened this week is so atrocious. It's so beyond words that it's one of the only events where you see like Rand Paul, AOC, Ted Cruz all being on the same side, shaking their heads, saying, how in the world is this possible? But Shimon, can you just explain to our listeners what happened for those who don't know, just so we can bring everyone together and we can explain why this is such a calamity and why this means so much for the crypto world?
Yeah, and again, I'm taking the optimistic view here. I don't think this is a calamity at all, but I think you're absolutely right that for the first time, people are seeing basically that rules do not apply equally to everybody, and that's like the main theme of what's happening. And we always knew that. So, for example, before, and I'm delaying saying what happened exactly, just so I can vent a little bit, because like, in 2019 we had this like repo stuff, right, where the government basically helped hedge funds that wouldn't have been liquid, and just like gave them money. It was like, here, you can borrow money for free, just like to help with your liquidity. And it's like, yeah, they don't go to the corner store and say, hey, you can't pay your payroll. And I'm talking before COVID, just like 2019, normal year, economy was doing great. If a corner store cannot pay its payroll, the Federal Reserve is not going to give it money at 0% interest. But if a hedge fund suddenly has like some kind of liquidity crunch, the Fed just does these repo loans. And so you're absolutely right about people from all over the political spectrum coming together on this. It's crazy to me. I'm just like looking at Alexandria Ocasio Cortez's tweets. I usually really, really don't like her, especially because like she's like anti-business.
She's
She's like,
spot on with these. Sorry, I'm
she's
interrupting.
so
Spot on.
spot on. That's what I'm saying. And she's writing here, Twitch update. Chamath, which is Chamath Pilapitia, will be joining me along with the stock guy, which is like some random, like, Reddit person, to offer some updates and insights. Like if you would have told me that Alexandria Ocasio Cortez and Chamath Pilapitia and a random Reddit
Explain who
dude.
Chamath is, by the way.
So Chamath is like, originally he was like a Facebook executive, and I really really like his and basically entrepreneurial endeavors. He was a Facebook executive, and now he's an investor and entrepreneur, and he funds many companies. He pioneered a lot of the SPAC activity, which is basically a better way, or not better, a different way to fund a business. So it's instead of doing an IPO, you basically yeah, I don't want to get into the mechanics of it, but basically he's very forward thinking. He's done a lot of good things. He's talking about running as governor of California. But I'm just saying, like, you have a billionaire, Chamath, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who usually fights for the working class, and a random like Reddit dude going on Twitch, not like on the Wall Street Journal, not on Bloomberg, on Twitch, to explain what happened, right? So it's just crazy. So anyway, what happened basically, I'm not like super familiar with the details, and Alex, I'm sure you can correct me and add stuff, but basically there was this Reddit called Wall Street Bets. This subreddit, it's a combination of like crazy gambling and actually really in-depth analysis of stuff. So sometimes on Wall Street Bets, you have like really, really cool analysis. Sometimes it's just pure gambling on different stocks. So what happened is there was a hedge fund that shorted GameStop, and people discovered that it was shorted in a way that is not sustainable, and then they started a movement saying, let's all buy GameStop, not because their financials are good, but because like we can short squeeze this hedge fund, which basically means if you have a short position, right, you put collateral against it, and then and it's usually very leveraged. So what happens is, if the stock goes up, so against you, so when you short something, you want it to go down. If the stock goes up, at some point you have to liquidate your position and buy back all the like stocks that you shorted, because shorting a stock is basically borrowing it from someone and selling it. But then like when it goes against you and your collateral is no longer enough, you have to buy it back. So that basically causes the price to go up. And what happened is, with GameStop, I think the stock went from like $5 to like $400, something crazy, and was just driven by pure kind of um speculative activity. Right now, there's nothing wrong with speculative activity. It's a free market, it's an open market, everyone can buy, everyone can sell. And then what happened is, usually you would expect brokers to just let you trade on stuff, or you would expect brokers to not let you trade on stuff. But what happened is, Robinhood and then other brokers like Charles Schwab, allegedly, what they did is they said, look, you cannot buy any more stocks, but you can sell. And that has never happened before. Like, usually if like there's a circuit breaker, let's say the S&P goes down by 50% one day, no problem, they can just halt trading. But instead of halting trading, they said, look, you can you can sell, which helps the hedge fund, and then you cannot buy. which hurts the hedge fund. And so then what happened is people started saying, wait a second, this hedge fund that had the short position controls Robinhood. Now, or is an investor in Robinhood. Robinhood, it's a known thing that they used to sell their order book. So basically, they don't charge you fees for like buying and selling stocks, but they make money by selling your order book to institutional investors who then take the other position against you. And so people said, wait, there's a huge conflict of interest here. Like the trading platform, which is supposed to be a neutral platform, took sides and said, we are going to help the short sellers by not allowing people to buy the stock so the price will crash. And then what happened is today the stock went down by 44%, GameStop, but after hours they said we're going to resume trading tomorrow. It's again up by 61% in after hours. So like the current closing price is $193, but the after hours price is $311. It's just insane. I've never seen anything like this. That's what I know so far. Tell me what I got wrong.
Yeah, I think you got everything right. There's a couple of nuances here. So the subreddit Wall Street Bets has been around for a while, since 2013. Started by a guy, regular guy. He's 39 years old now, lives in Mexico City. Like, wife is a doctor. Started it to analyze stocks. It ballooned into something much bigger. Again, like you said, some gambling, some deep analysis. What they did recently is they looked at a list of all the companies: iRobot, Bed Bath and Beyond, Children's Place, AMC Theaters, GameStop, which are kind of legacy companies, especially hurt, as it turns out, by the coronavirus, and the stopping of the economy. These stocks were heavily shorted. So not only were they shorted, a large percentage of their stocks were shorted. So the hedge funds are coming in, betting, essentially putting pressure with this, essentially, on companies to fail. Okay. And so, and in this case, GameStop was 150% of its stock was shorted. So it was so leveraged, like you said, that not only all of its stock was shorted, 150% of it was shorted. And so a lot of things are really fucked up here. Excuse my French. A lot of things. And it makes me so angry because the system, the free market, and I believe in the free market, and I believe in guardrails that are supposed to protect everyone. The whole point is that everyone gets a equal playing field, and this has just been shown that it's completely not equal. And like you said, these people went in, they bought a lot of stock, they short squeezed the hedge fund, okay, which means that the hedge fund has to again liquidate their position by buying stocks, which causes the price to go up even more. It went from 3 to, like you said, 300. And one egregious, so egregious thing number one, right? The trading platforms, not only Robinhood, by the way, all of these fuckers, excuse me again, I'm just so mad. Like
Schwab
Schwab,
was part of it. Not
yeah,
even,
like
yeah.
TD, yeah, exactly. Like the major brokers, okay, stopped trading on these stocks. Why?
It's even worse. They didn't stop. They just said you can sell,
Yes, you
but you
can sell,
can't buy.
exactly, and
That's
not
worse
buy.
than stopping.
You're right. It is worse. It's forcing a certain position. It is
Yeah.
literally choosing the winner to be anyone. That's horrible. But the winner to be the hedge fund, who, by the way, hedge funds go around, if we're just being honest about it and calling it what it is, hedge funds love to call themselves sharks, love to go behind closed doors, talk about how they're, raiding companies, the corporate financial raiders. There's a movie called The Enemy at the Gates, Enemies at the
Barbarian
Gates,
at the
where,
gates.
Sorry?
Barbarians at the gates. Enemy
Barbarians
at
at the
the
Gates,
gates
excuse
was
me, Barbarians
about
at
a
the Gates.
sniper in Stalingrad.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar things. Variants of the Gates was about a forced acquisition, but hedge funds are all about this, and it's okay for a hedge fund to essentially bet and put immense pressure to have a company like GameStop go out of business with all employees that they have. Whatever, how I read somewhere 1,500 employees or 15,000 employees. It doesn't matter. It's people's livelihoods are on the line, right? Especially during the pandemic, it's hard to get jobs. That is okay, right? But it's not okay to go and bet against them and put a bunch of white guys, 10 white guys in a room that are billionaires out of business because they decided to over leverage themselves. That is not okay. So here's my, like, there's so much here we should discuss, and we'll get to crypto. But it's like the slap in the face is that Robinhood is supposed to be this whole, app for the people, for the little man, for the plebes, if you will, the people who can put in, $100 here, $500 here, collect the money, buy stocks. And Robinhood itself was, people came after Robinhood for gamifying the system so much and giving leverage, giving the access to money to so many people that they were under scrutiny themselves for trying to screw over the little guy. And this just unveiled everything. There's a Wired, last thing, I'm sorry, I'm gonna complete rant here, but there's a Wired article that came out today, and it says right now, 128 in the afternoon, 5 in the afternoon, Wired, Robinhood restricts GameStop trading in a bid to save itself. Bullshit. They just screwed themselves. There's no way people are going to come to Robinhood anymore. If I don't see a flock of people leaving Robinhood for the fact that this platform completely undermined people's trust, Robinhood came out and said, we continuously monitor the markets and make changes where necessary. In light of recent volatility, we are restricting transactions for certain securities to position closing only, which is what you're saying, to selling. In light of recent volatility, bullshit. It's bullshit. It's because the hedge fund came crawling on their knees, essentially. And I don't know. Does the hedge fund have stake in Robinhood? Is that
Yeah,
true?
yeah,
then
it
then
is.
it's
It's
even
public.
more egregious. This whole system just is unveiled and is shown that all these controls that are supposed to be put in place. We always knew, by the way, that Wall Street and hedge funds and the banks have much more information. They trade on insider information all the time, all the time. And if someone tells you they don't, they're just lying. But there are certain rules that we at least believed the system
Let's
was fair.
caveat that with allegedly, right? We don't want to make any
Sure,
accusation.
allegedly, they allegedly trade an insider trading all the time. Okay, allegedly, you're right, and so we don't know that for a fact. But the rules that are made to have people be on an equal playing field were completely exposed, completely exposed. And that's a gigantic problem for anyone that cares about the economy, for anyone that cares about the market. The fact that somebody or entities can choose winners and losers and literally right now say, we're going to stop trading, right? Or reduce it just to sell. I'll stop right for a second. It literally again screws the people that bought on the company, because the company can sell stock, other people can exit their positions, which drives the stock price down, and they can't buy in to keep the stock price up. Now it's like your own pocketbook is getting screwed because Robinhood said so. It's insanity.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll tell you from everything that I said that I of course agree with. There's two things that really, really stand out to me, and I think this is actually a very good thing for crypto, right? I have no problem with Robinhood doing stuff. Like Robinhood, it was a very shady thing from the beginning. I'm very suspicious at people who give you stuff for free. Because like they definitely have a way to monetize it, and it was a known thing that basically they front run your trades. So for our listeners to understand, right, there's two ways I can buy a stock, right? I can buy a stock on Interactive Brokers or Schwab or Ameritrade, pay $5, right, and then I just get the order executed at the price. It's a live price connected straight to the central exchange, like New York Stock Exchange or wherever the stock is traded. I pay my fee and I get my trade executed. If I go to Robinhood, right, they don't charge me the $5. But because they sell my order book to hedge funds, what these hedge funds can do is basically like, get a little something on top of my trade by basically trading just before me. And people were doing this like with high frequency trading, for example. There was a movie about that, right? With like positioning your optic cables in a way where your trades can be executed faster. So that's in a sense what they were doing. I have absolutely no problem with that. They were clear about it. It was in their terms and conditions and so forth. Where do I have a problem? My problem comes from the fact that they closed people's positions or they allowed only trading in one side and not the other, because that basically means that you're not guaranteed ownership of what you're owning, and you're not guaranteed access to a financial instrument which is supposed to trade in an open market. And so when that happened, it basically means that if I don't hold actual custody of stuff, I don't really own it because like people hedge funds can just influence the platforms and change the terms on me. Now the thing is with Bitcoin, you can actually own the Bitcoin. Like you can take possession of your Bitcoin, put it on your wallet. You're the only person that knows the private keys. With a stock, you can't do that. Like you have to use a third party. There's no such thing as like owning a stock in a way that it cannot be taken from you. And that basically, I think, shows how important decentralization is and how important everything that we're talking about in this podcast, right? The ability to physically control everything, the ability to like have full ownership of something and not trusting third parties. And so I think now people are going to start asking many, many questions about the system and how it's rigged against them and how to fight back. And then the last thing that I'll say is that Bitcoin is really the only or the first, I won't say the only, but the first time where this little guy can front run hedge funds and can front run Wall Street. And this has never happened before. Like if you look at adoption cycles of technology and stuff, it's always like the VCs going first, then it IPOs, then like maybe later it ends up being added to your 401k. And so by the time you enter a stock as a retail investor, most of the upside is gone. With Bitcoin, most of the upside is still in front of us. So I think this is a very good thing for Bitcoin. What do you think, Alex? What will be the effect of these events on Bitcoin, crypto, anything?
Yeah, look, I completely agree, and I think it will have the massive effects on the market. We're going to see much more scrutiny on the market, much more regulation, and in this case, hopefully, it's good regulation. Right? Not all regulation is bad regulation, and a libertarian will tell me I'm wrong. I vehemently disagree with that. There could be good regulation that equals the playing field as long as that's the case, right? So this stuff never happens again. But the trust is going to be lost for a while, and I think let me just create a parallel example here. Right before the U.S. election, right, there were the riots. The riots went onto the Capitol building, stormed the Capitol building, or overcame the police, which is it was terrible. But after that, we had a peaceful transition of power. We had a normal, decent, and beautiful inauguration of a new president. And if anything, our our governmental system was stress tested to the brink, right? And came back and actually showed the world that a powerful, true, good democracy can withstand, can endure, right, and can prosper without any kind of military politicization or military interference. This wouldn't have happened in many other countries. Now, what happened over this past week could have been a similar watershed moment for capitalism in an open capitalist market, because the U.S., just like the U.S. is the biggest and the example of a democracy in the world, the U.S. capital system theoretically is an example of capitalism in the world. People can argue that, but that's my stance, and we failed miserably. Instead of showing, hey, yes, this can happen, because when it happened the other way in 2008, nobody went to jail. No bankers went to jail. And they decimated generations of wealth, right? The, generations of wealth. And that was okay. And taxpayers bailed them out. And for the record, I was for the bailout because I know you, Shimon, are against. But for me, I knew that the bankers were going to be okay. And I didn't want liquidity to stop flowing to the people, the working people, because that would have just decimated our economy. But they had to pay a price, and they pay the government back with interest. But nobody was really punished. Yet when the little people, right, when the masses, when the retail investors go in and squeeze the hedge funds, no, 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 that's no longer okay. And this exposed our system in a way where it could have shined and it didn't. And I agree with you about crypto. Not only Bitcoin, so Bitcoin still needs to run on an exchange. That's the point, right? Bitcoin would, on Coinbase, it's a central exchange. On Fidelity, it will be a central exchange, and
By the
theoretically
way,
later on,
why does it have to run on an exchange? Why can't I buy a stable coin on an exchange and then buy Bitcoin on a decentralized exchange?
Exactly. And that's my point. Exactly. You couldn't have transitioned it better. What it's going to do is not only bring attention to Bitcoin, but bring attention to decentralized finances with these decentralized exchanges that are popping up. And before, I thought DeFi, as it's called, would be years away. This, just like Corona accelerated a lot of tech trends, like working from home and Zooming and FaceTiming and whatnot. This just moved us, I think, 5 to 7 years, fast forward to 5 to 7 years down that line. Because now people are going to say, why do I need to, just like you said, go to Coinbase, go to Schwab, go to Robinhood and risk this happening versus going to Uniswap or SushiSwap or any of the other multitude of decentralized exchanges that are going to pop up and trade on an exchange that will never, there's no ownership of it. It's literally decentralized. All of it is code that will never take ownership away from me. Ever, ever, ever. And now that the value prop of those exchanges is very hard to argue with, because before you could say, well, I trust the system, I can call customer service and they can help me out, but nobody still can't take your trades back. If you make a mistake trading Schwab or Fidelity, and I'm going to say, sorry, here, we'll reverse your trade. No, they'll help you navigate the UI. Okay, maybe you can do the same for the decentralized exchanges. You can have an outsourced customer service rep. They can help you
Right.
navigate where to go. But nobody can take ownership. Nobody can ever stop you from trading or ever force you to trade to one side. And I think this whole industry just got, it was already on fire. It was going to be on fire, but we just came in and dumped a truckload of kerosene on top of this flame, and it's about to be an inferno.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think something that people don't understand is like, here, I'll tell you why I was against the bailouts and why I'm basically against any of these things that create moral hazard, right? Like, we were in business school and people told us, no, the bailouts are actually good because look, like the government made money on these trades. Like the government bought stocks at like really low prices, and then the stocks recovered and then they sold it and slowly unwound, and the U.S. Treasury actually made money. So as a taxpayer, you should be happy that there were bailouts. But what people fail to realize is that these bailouts created moral hazard. Like just like you said, I don't want people to go to jail. I just want them to go bankrupt. Right? It's not a problem if a company goes bankrupt. Like people, I just had a discussion with a friend here who said, "Oh, what will happen if people get evicted and landlords and stores are shutting down because of coronavirus?" I'm like, no, like the what would happen in a normal capitalist economy where the government doesn't intervene is rents would go down, right? The landlords, okay, some of them have mortgages, some of them don't have mortgages. So if you have mortgage as a landlord and like your tenants stop paying you, then maybe you default on your mortgage. Then the real estate prices go down. What's so wrong about real estate prices going down? The only thing that's wrong is that many people have their wealth in real estate. And then people basically, that was the biggest criticism of the 2008 bailouts is that when the government bought mortgage backed securities, it basically injected money only in the pockets of homeowners. Like if you were a renter, you didn't get any benefit from the government bailout. Basically, your rent, instead of dropping by 50%, stayed the same. If you're a homeowner, you got this money. So it's the same thing here with the hedge fund, where it's like they somehow pressured companies to intervene on the behalf of the hedge funds. And this intervention wasn't neutral. It was just like tipping the scale to one side and not the other. And what I love about Bitcoin and decentralized finance, look, I don't know too much about it, but I'm just, what I love about it is that it, like you said, it's non-custodial. There's no one central authority, right, that controls it. And so imagine what would have happened if GameStop would have traded on a decentralized exchange. And I actually raised it on LinkedIn with a friend of mine who works in VC. At some point we're going to have synthetic instruments that track the prices of stocks. Currently, this is not legal in the US. It exists outside of the US, but the SEC basically does not allow you to sell security, without doing KYC and stuff like that. But at some point, it will exist because it's not hard to make an instrument that, just like Tether and all of the other stable coins, they can maintain a peg to the dollar, even though they may not have 100% of the dollars in the bank account. I think you can do the same with stocks, which is like have a synthetic token that tracks the price of GameStop. Now, what would happen if Robinhood stops the trading of GameStop and the decentralized exchange doesn't? Right? So suddenly the price of GameStop would go up on the decentralized exchange, and then the centralized exchange would be really, really screwed because like they stopped the trading, but that the price discovery didn't stop. What they tried to do now is to stop the price discovery, and I think that's bad no matter what, no matter how you look at it. It's the same thing with like mortgage like eviction moratoriums and stuff. Like if you stop price discovery, it's going to come back and bite you in some second order effect that we can't even predict.
What I think is going to happen in the long run, by the way, is all publicly listed companies will go to these decentralized exchanges. It's inevitable now. And by the way, I'm not against KYC or um, the other one left me. What's
AML.
AML? Thank you. So it's getting late here and the East Coast, or AML laws, regulations. Those are fine. Like, why not have KYC AML? This is natural, and this is going to create this. Michael Saylor says this all the time. For example, this is going to create a level playing field, the same playing field as we have now. I don't think anybody's really arguing against that. So that's going to come into decentralized exchanges as well. Fine. And you'll have identity on the blockchain, government approved identity. All this will be super fast, super easy. The point is, you bring up an interesting point is, if on one exchange the price discovery goes up and the other doesn't, it actually creates a lot of impetus to go onto the exchange where there's price discovery, because you're not going to want to stay on the exchange that doesn't have it. And so then the public companies, just like when Michael Saylor will be the first one, right, to buy Bitcoin, they'll be the first company to go on a decentralized exchange, and then a couple more, and then a couple more, and then the snowball will never stop rolling. And the fact that this, like, what Robinhood did, there's always these movements always have some sort of spark, right? There's always some sort of spark. Like, I'm from the former Soviet Union. The Russian Revolution started. There was a shot from a ship, and it started. And this is, I think, a spark in the long term. When we're going to look back, we're going to say this was it. This was when people started realizing why Bitcoin and other things need to happen. And by the way, as a second order or third order insight here is, we talked about one of our episodes, like 4 or 5 things that you need to do. You need to recognize Bitcoin as money for Bitcoin to endure. You need to recognize it as money, a done, check, right? Or a medium of exchange. You need to have large enough liquidity and network effects. We're getting there. Done, check. It needs to be able to be kind of useful for and be able to be, vendors have to accept it, or people have to accept it. Done, check. And government and regulatory bodies have to be okay with it. And that was like, oh, well, maybe they should be because it's too small and like it's not big enough. Even when it gets to the size of gold, maybe then it's going to be big enough. But think about it this way: who in their right mind is going to come after Bitcoin now, when the argument is, you come after us, this is the only protection of the people, right? Now Bitcoin became Robinhood, ironically. Bitcoin became Robinhood. All of crypto now has become Robinhood, and it's going to be very hard for a regulator to come back and say, no, we want to regulate this away. It's too volatile or too risky. It's like, forget that. You know what's risky? Being able to be shut out of a system, right, by a hedge fund just because it's going against their position. What constituents are going to support? Again, this is the left AOC and the right, Ted Cruz, are both on the same page here. It's no longer left versus right. It's everyone. So what regulation can come after Bitcoin now when it's the only savior against a system that just literally screwed a whole bunch of small investors?
Yeah, totally. And I'm just marveling from just the political perspective. It's just crazy to see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez talk about it. And now I'm seeing a Tucker Carlson bit named "Our Financial System is Dangerously Corrupt." And he's like interviewing Dave Portnoy, who was one of those like crazy like
Oh,
shills of
yeah.
like and it's just amazing to me to see how it just exposed it exposed like how everything is just like stacked against us. Like literally the ticker here on Fox News says hedge fund market manipulation exposed, greedy billionaire hedge funds in turmoil. Like it's amazing, right? Like media snobs provide cover for billionaires as small investor trades go wild. Those are the tickers, like on Tucker Carlson, and then people on the left are saying the same thing. But like I think again, what's really important here is to understand like the whole concept of custody and of how really it's so refreshing with Bitcoin. Once you know that you own something and it cannot be taken away from you, it's just such a powerful concept. Because anything else, you can have millions of dollars in a stock portfolio and suddenly you get a letter from the IRS, and it doesn't even matter that have you done something that's wrong or not. They can just freeze your accounts while they investigate. Like, look, I'm all for putting criminals in jail, and if you don't pay your taxes you should go to jail. But it's one thing for them to have to prove that I did something wrong, and only then they put me in jail. Or they can just freeze my money, right? And then start investigating. Like it's just crazy how the system is tipped against people.
Well, so even outside the RS thing, just from I agree with you completely on custody. I do want to touch upon one other point, and we should wrap because I think you and I can go venting to each other for the whole evening because this is such a. On one hand, it's this is why I said it's such a calamity because it's like it
But wait,
makes me
why do you think
angry.
it's a calamity? Why do you think it's a calamity? It's just like I think, if you remember our episode on the Capitol Hill thing and the whole transition of power, I think America is stronger because of these actions of Donald Trump and these like protesters. I'm not saying I'm happy that they happened, but I'm just saying once they happened, we became stronger because like it's an anti-fragile system. So it's the same here. I'm happy that this thing got exposed.
No, yeah, sure, but what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. This will make us stronger. This will make us better. This will make the financial system better. This will create and drive the adoption of Bitcoin and other crypto assets for sure. The why I say it's a calamity because it's kind of it's sad to see with your eyes how deep the core has rotten. Do you know what I mean? Like how grotesquely perverse the whole situation became. And when I almost feel like I'm trying not to sensationalize this, but it's hard not to because when you stop trading and force only sells, and then allegedly there's allegations that they auto sold. I mean, come on, auto selling someone else's stock. This is the whole point of custody. But on the flip side, I like it because I've been a big believer in crypto. You have been a big believer in crypto. And for our listeners out there, you know, guys, this is not financial advice, but damn, go buy some crypto. This, like, if this doesn't expose and create the most perfect use case, it's like it's now slapping us in the face, right? The fact that the system doesn't work. And no matter what rules you put in, the backdoor dealings, like what conversations have to have had or had to have happened for many, not just Robinhood, but many brokerages to stop trading, stop buying of. It wasn't just, by the way, GameStop. It was GameStop. It was AMC. I'm not sure if it was Bed Bath and Beyond and some of the other ones. But my God, I would never in my life think that would happen. Not in the U.S. Not in the U.S. And it did. And I want to bring up one other point. I want to hear your opinion on this. You said something very, very interesting very early on that AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, said we're going to go on Twitch. I think this is a backlash against the media as well. And I'm not watching Fox News now, but the ticker you read also speaks to that, right? That media has been helping protect this, and there's all this distrust against the media that Trump has brought on over the last 4 years. It's interesting to me that she's not going on MSNBC or CNN or whoever she goes on. She's going on Twitch. It's this whole distrust of the legacy systems by the millennial working by the millennial age group that grew into the 2008 financial crisis. They came out of college with no jobs, no incomes, had to be forced to go back to live with their parents. I did a musing on this only 2 days ago, and it turned out to be very prescient actually, but I never thought it would go down this road. But these people came out in a very bad time. The country didn't help them. The people said, well, work harder. You're just these whiny millennials. Roll up your sleeves and do some hard work, and bootstrap yourself out of there. And they said, no, the system is rigged, you boomer. And the system was rigged, and the system is rigged, and this whole thing exposed it. And we can't go back from this. You can't unsee this.
Yeah, totally. And again, it's all about property rights, in my opinion. There's many hardcore libertarians that say taxation is theft. I actually don't think taxation is theft, because I think, as long as you have, a democratic process where you can vote people in power to, like, lower taxes, no problem. So the fact that taxes are not lower is because most people don't want them to be lower. But I definitely do believe that money printing is theft, because there's no way, even like in the stated mandate of the Fed, it's supposed to be separate from the government, which means that, like, no matter which government I elect, the Fed can do whatever they want. And the Fed is totally controlled by all these, like, rich hedge fund people that basically are stealing money from everybody. They could steal money by printing money. They could steal money by forcing you to sell your stock if it goes against them. They can steal money by, like, preventing you from investing in things if you're not an accredited investor, right? So all of these things are just like the rich people stealing money from people who don't know how the system works. And it's all about property rights. Until Bitcoin, you had no way to protect your money from these rich people. Just think about it. I'm going to say it again. Until Bitcoin, you have no way to protect your money. Just think of all the places you could put your money. You could put it in real estate. They can raise real estate taxes on you, property taxes on you. You can put it in the stock market. They can manipulate the stock market against you. You can put it in gold. They have most of the gold controlled by the central bank, so they can dump it on the market and manipulate the price. The only asset where you can put your money and know that it's not going to be stolen is Bitcoin. And what's even better, there's a huge potential for upside, because the more and more people realize that Bitcoin is the only place where you can put money and it not being stolen, is the fact that will make Bitcoin appreciate. It's just like Switzerland, like in World War II. The only reason they could be neutral in World War II is because they had all the gold. And so even, like, the Nazis understood that, like, it's better to keep them neutral because they needed to clear payments. And, like, Bitcoin is that neutral place where you can store your money in a way that it cannot be taken away from you. So that's my takeaway from this whole thing. Just think of property rights. Think of where can you store your energy. And you said what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I'm going to end with a joke from the Israeli army that says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and what does kill you makes your mother stronger. So that's okay.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry, but I love it. I love the joke. Thank you, listeners, for listening to us. As always, at Shimon Lazarov, at Mr. EBITDA on Twitter. Please visit our website. Please subscribe. Please subscribe and leave us reviews. That keeps us going and helps push us in Apple Podcasts and other podcasts. Please write a review. We love hearing from you. Email us. Donate if you can. And thanks for listening. Until next time.